Hey, what's going on, guys? I got a special guest here today. We have Tad Nelson. He has over 30 years in law. He's completed over 400 trials. Tad, we're excited to have you on the hashtag Clockedin podcast. What does someone learn from having over 400 trials? That's incredible.
Well, for one, you just start getting, it's just like anything you do for several years, no matter what it is. I mean, it can be anything. You learn just by doing. And ultimately, hopefully, it's like any other craft. The more you do it, you get better at it. But I'll tell you the one thing that's really interesting about jury trials, and I'm a criminal defense lawyer. So in theory, the government should win the trials they file. They know what
Yeah.
they have, they know their evidence. The government has endless resources. And by and large, so to be honest, I've won my share. I've won more than my share. But I can tell you the one thing, Jordan, that's really interesting. You learn so much more by actually losing. You
Really?
really do. And as a criminal defense lawyer, every one of us has lost because
Yeah.
we're representing clients that are unfortunately more of them are guilty than not. But you see the things, and this is what people don't realize after every loss, I mean, we always, we see on TV like Gotti and everybody walking out of the courthouse celebrating when they win. But the important stuff that happens after a case is the conversation. Usually you wait around the halls and you have a conversation with the jury if they want to talk to you. Sometimes they don't, but you can
Yeah.
learn so much by spending some time with the jury. And they tell you the
Really?
stuff that they like, they tell you the stuff that pissed them off. They tell you the stuff that the government did that they didn't buy into. I always send letters out, and this is kind of the thing I think I'm, you know, most proud of by those 400 jury trials. I always send a letter out to them. I'm in a small county, or at least small by miles, and I
Mm.
always invite them to come by the office. If they have the time, or have a cup of coffee and have a chat. The more I can learn about what they thought of my craft, because what I think of it doesn't mean anything if I can't sell it. You know what I mean? So I've done that. God, I bet I've done it 40 times where they've taken me up on it and said, Tad, I'd love to come talk to you.
I
You know?
lo- yeah, and the thing I want everyone to realize during this podcast is we're going to talk about law, but law is going to be relevant to your life. So
Yeah.
if you're sitting here thinking about this, going, "Wait a second, is that basically like someone not getting a deal and asking their customers how they can improve?" Yes. Is someone sitting there thinking, "Wait, I failed at like maybe I wasn't able to run a marathon. I failed at that. Cool. How can I train and get better?" Talk to other runners that have done it before. Like it's all the same framework. So even though Tad's talking about law, we're going to be relating it to life so much
Yeah.
more. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And it's funny, you talk about one of the relationships I've developed. Um, do you know the senator from Arizona, the junior senator, Mark Kelly?
Okay.
So, like I was telling you, where I was sitting at the window, I'm I'm across the water from NASA. Well,
Yeah.
Mark lived around the street. Mark was on one of my juries when he lived here when he was an astronaut. Remember, him and his brother were the twins, the identical twins that both captained the space shuttle.
Oh, wow.
So Mark was on one of my juries on an aggravated sexual assault case. They found my guy not guilty. Me and Mark developed a little bit of a relationship. He invited me to Florida to watch him take off in the space shuttle.
Really?
Yeah.
And that just shows like you never know where relationships are going to bleed. And
No, you
that's why I
never.
love the podcast because it forces me to constantly meet new people. And if you're listening to this, you could just be talking to your people around you. You know what I mean? Talk to your customers, talk to your clients, talk to your coworkers, talk to the people in the Starbucks line. The more people you talk to, the more arms you rub, the more shoulders you get in touch with, the more people you're going to be able to get connected with, and they're going to think of you as someone who they want in their corner.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as you're authentic, true to your beliefs, and follow up on do what you say you're going to do,
Yes,
most of these relationships are going to be positive relationships.
Dad, the follow-up thing, I see that so often where people say they're going to do all this stuff and no one does any of it.
Yeah.
It's comical. It really is. Where people say they're going to do these things and then just don't even deliver. And it
Yeah.
happens all the time. And it's like, why do they do? We make ourselves overly busy. So I established, and I'm going to ask you in a second if you have any rules, because one rule I made is if it takes less than 5 minutes, I learned this from David Meltzer, who came on. He said if it takes less than 5 minutes, he's not he's going to do it immediately, which I started doing. So any
Yeah.
task I get where I can handle it in less than 5 minutes, like take out the trash. Cool, I'm not going to wait till later. The trash takes a minute. Like just take the trash out and go. So it's these little things like you get an email, you can respond in less than 5 minutes, go for it. That's how I started
Yeah.
thinking about things.
That's a great idea. I'm I'm gonna write that one down. That's good.
No, it really is because you start piling up these things and the activities you have don't have the same value, like which is comical.
Well, you talk about, rules that people have taught you. My very first boss when I was a prosecutor in 90, one of his major rules when I can remember my first day on the job, and he said, you're going to get a lot of calls. He goes, when you get back to the office and you get your calls, pick out the three worst ones and do those first.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I still to this day will come back and I'll have, stuff to do when I get back to the office after morning courts, and I'll go right to the worst thing to do and just try to get it done.
Yeah, no, that's a great one because you start to realize you're like, hey, if I can get this one done, then we
Right. The
can get the
rest
rest of it done.
rest of it's downhill. Exactly.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. So, what you do, Tad, is you're in crime and family law, which
Yes.
we talked about can be very, very stressful areas for the defendants, for the people in the courthouse. How do you seem to stay calm in those situations? And how have you seen like your clients stay calm? And this is more relating for the audience to realize, hey, when you have a stressful situation, maybe this is some tips and tricks you can use to react in a more positive way.
From my perspective, like I was talking with you earlier, the biggest thing that we try to provide at our office is, a little bit of hand holding. People they come to us with a problem. They either need to get divorced, or have a child custody issue, or they have a criminal case against them. Ultimately, those are things that just really stress people out. I mean,
Absolutely.
for one, thinking that you're not going to be with your children, or you're going to be moving from your house, losing your house, or are you going to be spending some jail time or whatever that may be? No. So one of the things we try to really pride ourselves on is not just worried about the result, which the result's important, and that's why people ultimately come to us, but why it's at least a tolerable experience. These are the worst times of their lives, and we're there to bridge that gap, to give them reassurance, to constantly be, people they need updates. I mean, granted, and some of them need too much, and some of them are way needier than they need to be. But at the end of the day, that's what we pride ourselves on. That's how we try to separate ourselves from other firms. The number one problem with lawyers in the country is communication with their clients. If you looked up any
Really?
lawyer, oh, absolutely, not even close. I mean, if you looked up the number one complaint that citizens have with their lawyer, that they've hired, it's communications. So we've actually realizing that we have somebody on staff that their title is called client success manager. And their only job is to keep the clients in the loop, keep the clients coming to get their information, keeping them updated on their court dates, anything that a client may need to feel better about the situation. Now, it's also sometimes we need information from the client to work on their deal, but more times than not, our client success manager is just trying to make the road a little bit smoother for them.
Yeah, and people get really nervous, especially when it's a high pressure
Hmm.
situation. And the other thing that we don't realize is the better we get at stuff, the more like it's tough. But when you're a top lawyer, like your
Hmm.
time is precious. That means
Yeah.
everyone's bagging at your time. So, but like that's a good thing, but that's also a challenging thing because you want to get clients and you want to do that. But it's important for us to realize that, hey, there does make sense when it's times that, hey, operations need to pick up if we really want to maintain these people. So we're going to have to reinvest in them. And that's
Hmm.
by bringing on a client success manager, by having those, knowing where your flaws are and finding openings in them. Because I guarantee you, all of us in our day-to-day lives have issues that we see on a daily basis that we know we could proactively fix, but we're just, sometimes we don't want to allocate the money to it. Sometimes we think it might be too much. It's not worth it. And that's really where you got to think around it. So, But Tad, how do you handle a lot of these people? How do you think they handle high stress situations? So like if someone's listening right now and they're in a high stress situation, it may not be like a divorce or a criminal case, but like how do you think they should handle that in a much better capacity or
You know,
could?
what I'm the way I approach that is the best way you can handle any high stress situation. This goes any everything from a game seven in the NBA finals. The reason it's less stressful is because you're prepared for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So like those guys that are in the NBA finals, they've been preparing their whole life. And even though I'm not athletic by any stretch, but I do prepare. And if you're prepared and you've done everything you can, you as the participant, you know, that will lower your stress. Hey, I might go into that courtroom at any time. I may win, I may lose, but I know I'm prepared. I know my stuff. I know I've dotted every I, crossed every T. Now, that's all I can do. So I can't lose sleep about that. But and then you've got to let your client know. Then you've got to start worrying about their stress. Making sure they're ready. What questions do they have? Because some clients, when they go into a hearing, they might not even know where to sit or where the judge sits or anything. So, and those things may be causing anxiety. I don't,
Yes.
I
So
mean,
it's really this unknown variable where we just don't know, in which case the more we prepare, the less stress we will be. Which I've never really thought about it that way, but it makes total sense. That the more we
yeah,
prepare for things, the less stress we'll have, which
right.
is
And
which is a big deal.
because you're ready for it. No other reason. I mean, I think the biggest stressor most people have, I mean, is the unanticipated,
Yes.
I mean, everybody has, are my children going to go to college stress? Do I have enough money to go for vacation this, or can I, all those things. We all have financial stress and family stress. You just got to do the best you can with that and hope that you can deal with it. But as far as your work environment, that is something we can control a little more, like how your children behave at school. You know, you can, again, you teach them how to act and you hope they follow through on it. But it's still tough with children. But with your work environment, you can set it up, you know, to have some, proficiencies. And then, if obviously the more anal you get, like we have redundancies set into a lot of
Yeah.
things, to make sure that we're always, that because things can get, when you got things moving fast, things can,
Slide. Yeah,
yeah,
and
they can slide.
that comes to the level of excellence that you want to keep and that you want to hold around because it's not that we're always just because we have more clients doesn't mean we don't have that same level of excellence, which I think is
Right.
important.
Yeah. And making another sports analogy, this is what I tell all the people at my office. We're not perfect. Again, it's like the best running back in the NFL. He's going to fumble. Well, when you fumble, jump on the ball as fast as you can, and pick
Yeah.
it up.
Yeah.
We're all going to fumble,
Yeah,
but
no, I
don't
I
stop.
I
You know,
really enjoy the sports references because the other thing that I've realized is that a lot of people show up with very low energy when they go to
yeah.
work. And when they just like enter their lives, like everywhere
Uh,
they go, they're like rah, rah, and it's like just low energy. And you have to realize like some of the things I do is I literally pump myself up. Let's go. Like, you know what I mean? I'll do some push-ups, jump up. And it's like, why would you get pumped up for the day? And it's like, you do that in sports, you do that in the weight room, you do it in these different areas. Why don't you do it in the office? Why don't you do it? Yeah.
Me and you are in lockstep, man. I mean, I'm telling you, I wake up, it usually takes me to about noon or 2 o'clock till, you know, I wake up with the best attitude. And, obviously people can wear you down, especially
Yes.
negative people like you're talking about. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a challenge to deal with them, you know?
Yeah.
And usually I'm perfect. I mean, till somebody really lets me down, and it's going to be a client, a DA, anybody. But, I'm flying high as a kite, until I just, it's funny. I consider myself, I love humanity, but once you start individualizing the people, that's where I start having some problems.
Well, it comes down to, and the tough part there is that it comes down to it starts becoming your framework of like what a good day is and what a bad day. And then it goes even deeper where it's what's my expectation of that person?
Mhm.
Like, do I expect them to do something? And like when we have, yeah, and then when we have these expectations, like I expect you to do this. And then when you go, oh, you didn't do that, big surprise. wow, the words you say hold no meaning. Like,
Right,
and
right.
it's them probably like, oh, I just forgot. It's not a big deal. No, it's a huge deal. It's a
Yeah,
massive deal. Like,
absolutely.
and
Yeah. You know,
I,
if you don't have expectations of somebody, they can never let you down,
yeah,
you know, and it's so true. And that's why it really helps. And I like to think I'm okay with that in the sense of I do know how to basically curb my expectations of people. You know what
you
I'm
have
saying?
to. You
You
have
know,
to.
and especially in any profession like what you and I do, you know, like you deal with, you know, the podcasting. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure you talk to some people that have no clue what's going on. And your expectation is lower.
So the way to curb the expectation for me, if
Yeah.
you're talking about that, so like if you're going to protect something, right? So like for me, I'm trying to protect the podcast. So the way I do that is I have an intro call. Why do
Mhm.
I have an intro call? To see if I like the person and see if there's actually some camaraderie here and this could work out.
Right.
But that's just by testing people. So when you test people, you can kind of move them along. And that's what I do. I do little tests with people. If you ever want someone to be a better friend of yours, just ask them to do like a very small task. Like, hey, can you like anything, like something so small, like send me a picture of your coffee tomorrow. Like it's not even an ask, but it's like as you ask for more, then they
Right.
start to become receptive, and that's how you build the communication, and like that's how you start to build a trust with people by doing little tasks for each other. You know what I mean? Or it's like you saw someone like I see you have the Longhorns thing. Now, if I was trying to build trust with you, if I was just gonna sit there, Longhorn season comes around in August, I go, oh, what do you think of the Longhorn? Like that's a little way of building trust with people because it's these ways of staying connected, and it's important for us to do that. But it's super. It's not easy because then we have
No.
to be intentional, and then we
Right.
not. Oh wait! I have to wait 3 months to remember about. Oh, cool! I have a send later button that I can send Tad an email. Like I can send you an email in 3 months. What you think about them Longhorns? Like you know what I mean? It's these little things where you can figure it out, and technology's helped us a lot. Now, Tad, with the consulting, I run Edwards Consulting and I have 5 pillars. It's mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. And with each of these pillars, I always meet with my clients and I say, hey, under mental health, on a 1 to 10, where do you think you're at today? And I say that regarding mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. And in reality, this is just for today. So if you could give me your score and then we could see what a 10 might look like. Or if you're really flying high, then maybe you're flying high and then you give some tips.
Well, you know, to be honest, I was thinking about that from our prior conversation. And literally today, you know, I have by and large, most days go really smoothly. But a little bit of an issue today. We had a guy who was unhappy. We're doing a great job for him. We got us already his felony DWI reduced to a misdemeanor, but there's been some confusion because he has a license out of state. We're trying to get him back driving in Texas, and there's been just some issues, and there might have been some communication issues. The one thing that will always challenge my mental health is when I feel like we're letting somebody down. And so I would say I'm at a 5, and that's as low as I'm going to ever go. Because by
Yeah,
and large, you know, I wake up ready to go every day, and I'm by and large a happy person, you know. So, but I don't, you know, I this was probably an hour ago, you know, that all this kind of blew up, and we've been trying to fix it. Again, like I said, there was a fumble, jump on it. Don't stand around and just look at each other. Get it fixed. You know, everybody makes mistakes. So I know in a couple hours I'll be back to a 7 or 8 because by and large I'm always riding high. It's just how, you know, I'm high fuel, I'm high octane. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, you know, you know, it's a double, it's two things kind of going on. I'm glad it kind of happened to me because I really don't experience it that often. But for one, I feel like I let somebody down, and that's the biggest thing that bothers me. And then obviously like probably you would be doing, you know, the little hamsters up there running the wheel, and I'm thinking, what could I have done different? What could I have
yeah,
done better? How can I be better tomorrow?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's important for us to realize that some of this happens. Like, but also, Tad, if you weren't the type of person to take full accountability, you probably would have just ignored it and been like, dude, we blessed you. We
Right,
blessed you from going from a felony to misdemeanor. Like,
right.
we literally blessed you. But you're someone who's always in the self-improvement game, which becomes very challenging, especially you talked about in the legal field, mental health can be very jarring because you constantly like they carry a lot of the burdens, right?
Yeah, yeah. And as judge, and you're seeing this a lot nationally now, but you start dealing with hang 'em judges. That gets tough, and you see a client that you've worked with for a year and a half, and you become to like them, and then they get sent to the penitentiary. I mean, it just breaks your heart.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I don't think we're all looking to be given gold medals every day, but you know it just, and that's why you'll see a lot of criminal, especially the criminal lawyers, they really do hang in a pack because when you see your clients that you've learned to really care about get punished, and it just tears their family apart. You have to have been in that situation as a lawyer to understand what the other lawyers are going through.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you one thing: as high as the highs are, the highs aren't nearly as low as the lows are,
Yeah.
and that's
So
why criminal law is so challenging.
so how do you think people on just a like a human level can really combat those lows? Because it sounds like some of these like the next day you're like, dude, I don't want to go have to do this again. Like this is a tough day.
And you're probably, we actually have a seminar here in Houston, um, that's named after a guy who was trying a lot of capital murder cases, death penalty cases, and he ultimately, I'm not going to say his name, but he ultimately took his life
Oh no.
because of the stress,
Yeah.
and it really did wake us up down here.
Yeah.
We're well aware of it because of this seminar. And ultimately, the things we go at the seminar, a lot of what you talk about. I mean, basically, you know, if you're hurting, talk to somebody.
Yes.
I mean, that's the number one thing. Don't get in the fetal position in your bedroom, and lay on the floor or anything, and turn the air conditioning down. Don't do that. Let
Yeah.
somebody know, if it's your wife, your spouse, your child, your oldest daughter. I mean, whoever it is, reach out to your best friend, your golf buddy, another person at the firm. But, talk about it. Try to talk through it.
Yeah.
Don't go into a hole. That's the toughest thing. And that's what people don't do a lot of times.
Yeah, and it's really got to be opening up those conversations because it's not even the conversation. Even if you don't want to do that, like that's totally fine. One of the ones I use too is we'll dive into physical health next, but I'll resort into like if I'm really having like a like what is going on, I might just go on a 5 mile run.
Hmm.
Why? Because I'm gonna sweat, I'm gonna feel better, I'm gonna bring my body in motion, I'm gonna see the sun, and like you just start to realize, hey, was I really upset about it? Maybe.
Hmm.
But am I upset now? Maybe a little less. And
Yeah.
you just start to realize, like, hey, it's not that big of a deal. Like, life goes on. Like some
Yeah.
things life doesn't go on, but like in those cases, like you have to realize, like you're here for a job. Like you have a responsibility, yes, but you can't control everything.
Yeah.
And because of that, you can't give yourself the pressure of feeling like you have to be perfect every single time.
Yeah. And I think I'm like you. I like going outside does help. Being
Yes,
in the sunshine, taking a walk. I live on a little island. Walk around the island, or I don't jog as much. I used to. I got two new knees, but a little walk around the island is nice. Or sitting by the pool and just thinking, listening to music. I mean, anything.
to
That.
change the mood. Yeah,
Right.
no, absolutely. You have to. You
And a
have to.
little solitude, little alone times always. I find that I mean, that can kind of build me back up. A little bit of alone time.
Well, I think it's when you're truly able to think through the issue and get to the actual, hey, was this me? Could I have done better? Where does this improve? Where do I carry this next? And you start asking yourself better questions instead of like, why did this have to happen? Like, you know what I mean? Like, these are things that we can't control. And again, audience, I want everyone to realize that we're talking about the law, but we're talking about life here at the same time, too. So, your physical health, Tad, how do you think about that on like a 0 to 10? Where do you think you're at on that? And I appreciate the vulnerability about the mental health.
Yeah, and like we were talking, I'm a 50, I turned 60 in June.
Yeah,
So I have one child. I have a 7-year-old daughter who turns 8 in July. So I was
incredible.
late to the party, as far as children. Um, and since my daughter, you kind of see that, wait a second, I'm 50 years older than her. I need to figure out a way to live longer so I can enjoy more of her life. So
Yeah.
since my daughter's been born, some of the bad habits, I think my diet's immensely better. I've exercised more, swim a lot. walk when I play golf now, don't get in a cart, just anything. I've, lost some weight, gotten healthier. And it's funny, all these things we're talking about, they're kind of like a snowball effect, you know? As you start feeling better, you want to feel even better. As you start losing
Yes.
weight, you want to lose more weight, and then when they start bleeding into all the different sectors of your life, when
Yes.
when your health gets better, that you become a better lawyer or become a better
Yes.
father, you know,
Yes.
it
I
really is fun to get on the right path.
I love that. Yeah, because there was like a post I saw the other day on social media where it basically said the path to heaven is hell. Like it's basically very challenging, hard, challenging. Like you're talking about running, swimming, all that kind of stuff. He's like the path to hell is heaven, where it's
Hmm.
just you're overeating, overindulging, over. It's very short term versus long term, and you do start to realize the compounding effect all around is insane and it's incredible. And the fact that you have more energy,
Hmm.
higher, and like maybe it result relates a little bit to the light you have up there, relentless for
And
those that
that's
are listening.
yeah. And that's how I approach my practice. I'm relentless, and it doesn't mean that I study relentless. What I mean by relentless is I am relentless in trying to get my clients what they want, or
Yeah,
or what they need.
yeah,
That is what, you know, I really think I have a good understanding of what I do for a living. I provide
yeah,
a service to a person. I
yeah,
try to make their life better. And
yeah,
it's rewarding and it's good. I'm fortunate. I'm very lucky. I'm not selling some unnecessary gadget, that people don't need. I really do. I have people come to me when they are in a bad way. And
yeah,
hopefully I can, you know, we can't all fix the world, you know that. But
yeah.
but we can add our light to the sum of light.
Yes. Or even the light to their darkness, which will be all the light.
Yes,
It's even
exactly.
bigger.
Yeah.
So for you, I mean, it sounds like your job is already kind of encompassing it, but community service philanthropy, how do you think about that? Because obviously you said you're small town, kind of nearby, but it's big town. Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, back in the day when I was a little younger before I had my child, I served 6 years on the city council.
Oh,
I was
wow.
I was very active in politics, and through that I got into some service organizations that I stayed with. I was president of Big Brothers Big Sisters in Galveston
Oh,
County.
wow.
Cheers, yeah. So I've always been very active, and
What'd you think about that in regard to someone who might be like, I've never really volunteered before. Like, don't I have to have a lot of money to volunteer? Like,
yeah.
because most people I talk to, they go, yeah, I might write a check, but I'm not sure that I'm doing time.
And I'm never gonna, because believe me, as the president, part of what I was doing was trying to get those people to write those checks.
Yeah,
I'm never gonna down people that just write checks, but I will say something to you. Um, it's a heck of a lot easier to write a check than it is to, invest your time. And
yeah,
these people that don't have money, make a phone call. Ask them
yeah,
how I can give my time. See, there's
yeah,
two ways to help Big Brothers Big Sisters, and this is what, you know, I was never in the program, so I was never a big brother to somebody.
yeah,
That is, the people that do that, that's amazing. I had some of my lawyer friends I got into it that were big brothering and big sistering. They loved it. I was always on the administrative side. I was always helping with the organization and the getting money and things like that. And I loved it. And I got kind of into that because of politics. When I started getting politics, different things opened up, and so I was more in administrative. But yeah, I think it's so rewarding. Obviously, I love doing it. Um, but it is so the people that don't have money, don't let that slow you down. Get
yeah,
involved. I mean, like I said, the people with money are going to write the checks. Big deal. That's great. And some of those are very, very involved too. Like the people
yeah,
that were on my board were very wealthy, and a couple of them were, but they were the hardest. A couple of the ladies were some of the hardest working women that I'd ever been around. And
yeah,
and it takes money and stuff to get those programs to work.
yeah. And but I think the best thing that you kind of shared there is like, and you didn't directly share it, but it's share your skills. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So your skills, you might have been more valuable going, hey, I know everyone in the community. I can raise more money than other people.
Hmm.
And instead of just mentoring one child. You know what I mean? Instead of being one
Right.
big. So I'm not saying one's right or wrong, but it's always, hey, if you have a skill set,
Mhm.
like see how you can help around. You know what I mean? It's not always so much let me do this, but it's see how you can help. So I think that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect way to say it. If you can't do something, don't do it. Do something else.
Yeah.
But I think I found my niche was kind of in the administrative side of it. And like I said, I did it, for 4 years. And as the president, I was on the board for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was very rewarding. And
That's awesome.
yeah.
And so now the next pillar is relationships. This can be personal, professional, however you want to interpret it. But how do you think about your relationships?
Well, that's changed a lot too since having the little girl,
Yeah.
and I still to this day, my three best friends that I run around with, I've known one since 1970 and the other two since 1972.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I mean, we've been, best friends for over 50 years, and
That's incredible.
still the main three people I run around with.
How were
It's
you able to do that? I feel like most people,
it's small town. Galveston, Texas is small town, and
yeah,
and granted, a lot of people that you would know would never have that opportunity, would never have stayed in roughly the same place. And we all went to different schools. Like I went to UT, one went to U of H, one went to Rice.
yeah,
And the guy at Rice played baseball at Rice, and kind of went through his baseball thing. I went through my law school thing, and then the minute we got back to reality, we were all hooked back up. And once we had our jobs, then that um, yeah, just kind of works out. I guess it's like you talk about your pillars. It's with something. A pillar is going to stand up straighter with a better foundation. And I think that's what
yes,
sometimes when you have friends that go that far back with you, I mean, you can't. I mean, that's the best foundation you're going to have.
100%. I mean, that's why I literally have, so I have friends that I have, but like even my parents, like they've tried to over the past few years, because I'm in Florida and they're in Jersey. So we'll literally it's like a quarterly trip. It's kind of a lot. Like once a quarter we'll go somewhere for the weekend and we see them and then we see my best friends and his family. So it's like every quarter everyone's linking up and getting to see each other because it's this fun, hey, like how's everything going? What's new? What's exciting? And it's this cool way of building community. And then the second thing I do is I have different groups that I have a Monday night group and a Thursday morning group where people meet. They don't really know each other, but they come on the call every single week and we have deep conversation. Why? Because a lot of us are struggling with community. And if you have strong community, it's a great foundation, like Tad just said. Like it really makes a huge difference.
That is so cool about the quarterly thing because that takes some effort, and that's exactly what you're preaching. I mean, put in the effort because you don't get rewarded for doing nothing.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, the reason they're doing the quarterly thing is because I like experiences.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and like, if you want to see me, like, let's schedule a trip or let's do a thing or let's do it this. And so I've helped them with their planning skills. I've helped them. They're gonna listen to this, so I have to say something good. But yeah, no, it's been really fun and it's cool to stay connected with them. And it's like a second group that like a quarter, 3 months is enough time. You know what I mean? And it's not always 3 months on the dot, but it's like you try your best. You do what you can.
Yeah. It's funny. Your ideology of the way you do things is very similar to how I do it. Like I tell people every day. I can another sports analogy for you, but I consider my office and the way we practice law. We're like the Mike Trout of
Yes.
law practice. You know what? When Mike Trout, he gets paid his money. If he hits a one hopper to the pitcher, the average Major League Baseball player puts his head down and walks to the dugout. Mike Trout is running as fast as he can to first base
Yeah.
when there is a 99.99999% chance that he has no chance, but he will hustle every time.
Yeah.
And that's the way I approach practicing law.
Yeah.
I'm here. Why wouldn't I hustle? Why would I ever do anything that would indicate I was lazy or I didn't care?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, it doesn't cost anything.
Doesn't cost
like,
money.
like
Right,
you literally don't waste any time. It
right,
literally costs nothing. And it's
right.
like you're innately tired. But the funny thing is, as you practice more and as you build out that muscle, you get stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where you can take adversity and you're like, let's go. Like
Mhm.
you look at some of the days you've had, you're like, dude, if this was the beginning, I wouldn't even know what to do with myself. But now it's
Right.
easy and I can handle this and I love it. So for you, spirituality is the final pillar. What do you think about spirituality? Some people treat this as religion. Some people say it's meditation. Some people say it's yoga. Some people are like, not for me. Some people are involved in it. What do you think about spirituality?
I grew up Catholic and I was an altar boy. You know, I literally lived 200 yards from the church.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so my dad was very, very, religious.
Yeah.
I can remember during my years of when the other altar boys didn't show up, Father Kellick would call my house and say, Sonny, I need Tad there. I mean, I could be outside dirty in shorts and a t-shirt. You put the robe on. Tad, get your butt to church. Father Kellick needs you. I mean, I felt like, I was doing three shows. I felt like there was three shows during the weekend and a two drink minimum, by the time, I mean, it was crazy. I was down there so much from from that and, just life in general. I'm not as religious as I used to be, as I grew, as my parents wanted me to be. I guess I never took to it the way they did. So
Yeah.
mine is more just my spirituality is to, you know, is to be nice to everybody. Just to
Yes.
always, share your light. It, this is the best way to think of it. It's, when I work downtown Houston a lot, and there's a lot of homeless people on my deal. And you see some people walk by them and they look away and they're like, don't panhandle me, and that it's it, when I take that walk, all I can think about is I'm blessed to not be there. You know what I'm saying? And usually I'm trying to be helpful. If they give $2 or $3 or $5, whatever, that's not important. But it's the feeling inside you that I'm not better than them. I'm fortunate to be where I am, wearing, a nice pair of shoes and not being cold and not having holes in my shoes
Yeah.
and, that's, and it just helps from being a positive person, loving all people, and treating
It,
everybody like we're all part of, we're all,
yeah. So I've heard this a few times, but it seems like the real big thing for you is gratitude. You're
yes,
grateful for where you're at, which a lot of us need to do because it brings you back to reality. And then the other thing is the connectedness. How we're all one. We're all connected. Like like we're all coming from the same thing, and that's okay. And that's why else would you spend 40 minutes on a podcast trying to stare knowledge? You know what I mean? Like you
right.
do it because you want to be realized like, hey, if one person can listen to one thing and learn one portion, that'd be awesome. Like,
Yeah, and it's like what's going on in the world today. There's, I don't want to get political, but there's so much going, it just hurts your heart to
yeah,
see
I mean,
some of the pain of people.
I literally stopped watching the news because it's so much tragedy. Like you don't even know how to, you can't comprehend it. It's hard to like truly understand it. So, I mean, for you, I know you are in an area of like true independent thinking, and like in society we're bombarded by the news, by social media, by all these different channels telling us to think this way, believe this about this person, do this about this. How important do you think it is to think independently, and then how do you do it? Like how do you think without attaching, and maybe give a like an explanation on why you're such a good independent thinker just through your legal life.
You know, I, my parents always told me stories like, when I was 5 or 6, they punished me, like I'm out there playing, I do something wrong, send me to my room. I was supposed to be there for 10 minutes, they'd come looking for me in 6 hours. I've always been fine by myself. So I've
Yes.
I've never felt the need, like, I do have groups that I've got golf groups and groups that I travel with, but at the end of the day, I've never found my identity from being in a group. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
so, I don't mind. I enjoy groups and I enjoy people. Don't get me wrong. but I've never felt that as my identity. And I guess, for just being the independent thinker, you go through, you know, and I've always seen the world through my own, my own view. But then once you start working, you know, as a prosecutor, you saw some of the, and then this is, I kind of think what, I'm down here in Texas, very conservative. Um, but when I was a prosecutor, I was on the the government side, and I saw some of the tricks and some of the shortcuts that some of the detectives were willing to take. And I can
Interesting.
tell you, as a prosecutor, there's still some incidents that I remember explicitly that really bothered me, and they stayed with me. So then once I got out on the defense side, then you're fighting that. And that's why I went and got the master's in toxicology from Florida, and did all the learning of the science. All it took was one or two experts coming to court lying and taking shortcuts that I told myself, I can't let this happen. I've got to go get educated so I can stop that in its tracks. And that's why I got that extra master's degree. Because, at the end of the day, you know, just because somebody thinks it's right, it doesn't make it right. And I've always fallen back. Most of my independent thinking is because I want to see people treated fairly. You know
In,
what?
so that's a different frame. So instead of looking for what is right or what is wrong, whatever story you want to tell yourself, it's how can everyone be treated fairly? And if
And
everyone's treated fairly in the scenario, then we'll get to the right result.
absolutely. I mean, you know, pretty much, 70% of the movies out there, most of the songs ever written are ultimately about getting to a place where everybody's happy. Some
Yes.
of them, they sing these love songs where they're hurt, but the point is to get to happiness. And then, you know, yeah, I've just seen so many people treated poorly. And
Yes.
that's pretty much where I go. And that's how my independent thinking and my spirituality are very intertwined.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's the cool thing about it is that you start to realize like you can share like it's quite interesting because with the independent thinking, you start to realize it's okay. Like the expert's not always the expert. Like
Absolutely.
they don't get me wrong, everybody can be their expert. Yes, they might be smarter than you in that one area, but they might have had an off day. Like
Hmm.
that's completely okay. That's why I started double verifying things because it's like you might hear something and you're like, is that right? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And the thing that once you truly start getting okay and really know you're an independent thinker is when you start hearing other people's positions and they don't offend you. You want to learn more about why that person might think that. You know,
Yes.
why, if I think X and you think Y and I respect you, or even if I don't respect you, um, how did you get to Y? Teach me, tell me, help me understand, why my thought might not be right on this.
Yeah, and for the audience listening, I don't know if you caught what Tad did there. He brought the idea on him as a learning moment instead of going like a lot of us do as Tad, you're wrong. No, Jordan,
Right,
you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, he literally goes, I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure if I agree at the moment. Can you explain why you think that?
right.
And that is such a vulnerability of like, hey, I'd love to learn more because I'm curious. How did you get there? And then it allows you to revalidate what you like or what you don't like because independent thinking is not an easy thing to do in this society. Mostly, I think, because we have to make decisions so quickly. So it doesn't
Mhm.
allow us to fully understand things. So people are constantly making decisions quicker and quicker and quicker. And they're like, if I can make the decision fast, then I'm a successful person, but you might not agree with the decision. So it becomes very challenging.
Absolutely. That's perfect. I mean, that you're so correct on that. I mean, that I can, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy as you start looking at it and you start to realize there's a lot of things. So, I mean, Tad, we're winding down, but what are some of the big flaws that people have about protecting themselves in business and life and all of it? Like, how can people be more protected?
In what way?
Just, I mean, let's start off with business. We'll go
Hmm.
in business front. Like, where are people under lawyering or where are they not thinking about the law in the correct way? or even in, like it's really whatever you think's best. Is
Well,
there?
the one thing that I think, with all the animus going on, I think that's where a lot of people, you know, 20, 30 years ago, there could be more of a conversation about litigation. We have become a crazy, litigation country. I mean, it just gotten, I think I think the best way that we could avoid some of these is if people took a step back, and again, it goes just what I was saying, if people would take more time to understand the other side, maybe we
Yes.
wouldn't have to litigate it and what have you. What's gotten crazy is how everything has been there is no conversation. There is no more trying to bridge a gap between once and it could be any kind of difference. It can be some of it is, some of it is cultural, some of it could be ethnic, some of it could be religious. But once there's a divide with anybody, some people have no desire to bridge that gap whatsoever. You know, um, my one of the things I'm proud of, so I've never seen color in my life, you know, never once. I went to a predominantly, not predominantly, but had more black kids than white kids.
Yeah.
I was when I was in the basketball program, there were 70 kids in the basketball program. Two of them were white, 68 of them were black.
Oh wow.
When I got married, two of those guys stood up with me,
I love that.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that, there's still so many issues. And, I know we didn't want to get into like a big, comment on this, but it's just like, when Obama won in 2008, I can remember sitting there crying, thinking, God, we've turned the corner.
Yeah.
We'll never, you're a young dude. I mean, you were like
Yeah.
barely a baby then. I'm thinking like, this is behind us.
Yeah.
Drinking problems are behind us. No, I mean, I at the time, but what it turned out to be is that was just a guy banging the gong to get everybody out. It was like when they turned on the lights, the cockroaches scrammed all over the place. I
Yeah.
mean, but I know we're not getting into race here, but that's a bad situation,
Yeah.
and that's we have a lot of problems in our country. Still the best place in the world. I'm
Yeah.
not going anywhere. I'm not one of those saying I'm leaving. I'm
Yeah.
not. This is my home. I love it here.
Yeah.
But just like your children, when one of your children, you're not going to love them any less, but you're going to get them back there and you're going to tell them, hey, you got to do better.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what I think we as a country have to do better. And I think that's a lot of the problem, with when you say the litigation that's going on that I deal with. There's even in criminal law, which you think is just the government charging, crimes against the penal code. So many of this just starts that shouldn't have, just
Yeah.
we just people taking a bad position that can be based on their hate or their fear.
Yeah, no, I think you're bringing up a good point with about the fear and just how people, basically what I'm getting from this is like, if you want to avoid big legal issues, have the difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Like have the real conversations with the people and see if you can come to an agreement of sorts in some sort of capacity that doesn't have to go down the system because it system will take a toll on everyone and it
And
can be very challenging.
exactly. And a lot of my divorce clients, it's funny that you can, just like it's attributed to Shakespeare, but it's actually William Concrete, where it says, there's nothing worse than love turned to hate, and hell has no fury like a woman scorned. But I see it with the divorce clients. Despite them being together and in love and having children, when it gets to the end of a relationship and the fighting is so bad, you know, they can't even have enough respect for each other or enough ability to communicate that's like, hey, this is bad. Maybe we should call it quits. No, it gets to where it's horrible, where they hate each other. They, attack each other. They beat rip each
But I
other's
mean,
clothes.
I mean, a lot of that stuff comes from, I mean, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I don't know where they're at, but everyone's got a different situation. But you start to realize it's many, many unhad conversations.
Exactly. It's all because of communication, without a
And
doubt.
yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard to have conversations because you feel like you're confronting, but
Mhm.
every time you do that and you literally go like this and you bend a little bit, then you come back and you're even stronger. So
Right.
like,
Oh,
yeah.
bingo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you have to because when you think about it, like our bodies are anti-fragile. So what that means is like when we lift weights or we run or we do hard things, we actually get stronger. The
Mhm.
relationship you have should not be fragile. It should be anti-fragile, meaning that whenever you talk about a subject, like, hey, what do you think about that? We've already discussed that. We already know the answer to that. We can
Right.
share that with somebody else, but like we already know. And that's where you need to be at. But a lot of the time, you don't force those hard conversations because it's like, this is so boring. I just want to have fun. I just want to
Yeah.
enjoy. And it's like, where the hard conversations are, that's where the growth is. So,
Without a doubt.
yeah, so I challenge everyone, go have a hard conversation. I don't know what that one you're holding in, but that's definitely something you should do. Tad, you are incredible. Where can people learn more about you and learn more about your firm? And yeah,
We're online at tadlaw.com. And then we're all over social, Tad Nelson and Associates. We're TikTok, Instagram, yeah, Facebook. Go look us up. Go follow us. Please follow us.
yeah,
Chat out
absolutely.
to us, reach out to us about any questions you have. We'll answer whatever. Easy to find, easy to talk to. I
Absolutely.
like to talk to people.
Absolutely. We'll throw that all in the show notes and we'll put out the content anyway. But Tad, thank you for coming on. This was awesome.
No, you're great. Loved every minute with it, man. I hope you hook me up with one of your groups. I'd love to come on.
Yeah.
You're talking, you've got a lot to say that really interests me. You're you're very I wish I would have been as with it. Well, you said you're 29.
Yes.
You're half my age.
Yes.
And I wish I'd have had my shit together like you did at 29. And I was a lawyer and working, but I mean, you really do have your shit together. Very impressive, and it's nice to be around you.
I appreciate that.